So where we store fat is most heavily influenced by where we express the enzyme lipoprotein lipase. Now, I mentioned the hormone a effector, insulin. That's a good example. But also in this subtopic now, within this broader topic, let's talk about sex, because the sex differences between male and female, of course, matter enormously. And that is all about sex hormones. Now, you'll notice, of course, we all have noticed, we've noticed it in ourselves, but in children, within our families, that a little boy and a little girl look similar, that their overall body shape is generally indistinguishable, of course, other than genitalia. They look the same. There aren't any substantial differences in their overall frame or the build of the body. But those differences start to manifest themselves as the child, of course, goes through puberty, which is a time of explosive difference and change, much of which, of course, is mediated by an explosive increase in sex hormones. Of course, estrogens primarily being the influence within the females, and androgens being the primary influence in males. Now, I'm using those terms because they are reflective of the general category of the prototypical female sex hormones, being estrogens, and the prototypical male sex hormones, being androgens. Now, within those families, there are more specific influential hormones, like testosterone is the poster child of the androgens, even though there are more than just testosterone. Now, unfortunately, we often will say estrogen. There is no hormone called estrogen. It is the estrogens, and the main one being estradiol. That's sort of what testosterone is to androgens, estradiol is to the estrogens. But with that brief endocrinology lesson out of the way, these hormones have a powerful influence on the expression of lipoprotein lipase. Let's start with the boy. When a little boy is going through puberty, his testosterone levels climb manifold. And this will start to increase the expression of lipoprotein lipase in the central abdominal region of his body. Now, that does not mean he begins to only get belly fat, because at that same time, testosterone is inducing significant growth of mass, lean mass, bones, muscles. And of course, there's IGF-1, which is a growth hormone kind of derivative, and growth hormone itself that are influencing growth. So as much as this boy is now giving the hormones are giving rise to the potential to be storing fat around his belly area, that energy is being devoted to growth. So he doesn't have the energy, if you will, to be, well, not if you will, literally, he doesn't have the energy to be storing fat around his abdomen, unless, of course, there's an excess of energy, which can certainly happen. But usually, as the boy begins to go through puberty, he leans out because all of that energy is being spent and devoted rather to storage, to being used to fuel growth of the body itself. Now, however, because testosterone or androgens generally are increasing the expression of lipoprotein lipase in the central area, that does include an increased expression in the visceral area. And we will talk explicitly about visceral adipose tissue in a little bit, because that matters greatly, because we store fat differently in the visceral space than we do in the subcutaneous space. So within the male, there is that potential that when fat storage does start to happen, it's going to happen in a more pathogenic or a more harmful way, because storing fat centrally can be problematic. It begins to want to restrict its fat storage itself. It wants to prevent storing too much fat centrally, and that actually has some unfortunate effects.